Hey, how's it going, guys? It's your boy RapTRz here. I'm bringing you a Muriel build for support. I found myself using this build back to time with Muriel. Muriel overall is a really great support, if not one of the best supports, just because of that global presence with her ult. But anyways, we're gonna get right into this. As you see, we have the Centurion, basic support, prime card, you got barrier, you got your guard, mana potion, Mender's Phial, and 2 Shepard's Phials. I like having 2 of these guys because later in the game I might get rid of one and replace it with a card or whatnot just to get those extra cards, and maybe in the later game I may have like 1 point left over or something, or in the mid game I believe, and I'll just pop one of these guys again just to have it again. As you see, I have 5 of these, so but anyways, I usually like starting with the Circlet of Health. This is a really good card to start with, especially if you're dual laning with your carry or whatnot in red lane. Usually I have a partner and we usually dual lane. When I run Muriel, he always runs his 3 cast tokens just to give him that early game damage that is really useful in the beginning of the game, and he doesn't have to worry about his health regen. He doesn't have to get a health potion because I'll have the Circlet of Health, which over time just gives us a lot of lane sustainability and helps us farm in peace, which is really good. So that's the first card you pick up with your 3 points. The next card you would get on your back is the Lord's Key. You could take a Lord's Ward, but I usually like taking the Lord's Key first just because it helps our jungler give a lot of free room, a lot of wiggle room for ganking, a lot of those early plays, early kills, which are really helpful in your team. You want to help everybody on your team, including your jungler, which is why I like having the Lord's Key. Usually before the game starts, I'll tell my jungler I have a Lord's Key, that I'll get it on the first back, and that I will get the red lane harvesters and that he will get the blue lane harvesters, which is really good because it gives you, like I said, your jungler a lot of free room. So I like taking the Lord's Key as well when I'm my first 3 points. I usually like backing up right when I get those 3 points to have those up as soon as possible. My next card that I do get is the Lord's Ward, which is this card that has, once again, wards save lives, and you want to have this as early as you can as well, Lord's Ward, just to help you prevent those ganks. And usually when you're done getting those 3 points, when you have these 2 cards slotted already, you're gonna have that extra mana and extra health. You're gonna have 200 health, you're gonna have 5 cooldown reduction, and I believe will be 150 mana when having these 2 cards slotted already, which is a really big help because you get that cooldown reduction, you get your health, and you get your mana really early in the game, which is why I love Lord's Key and Lord's Ward. Usually you can have an option, you could build more health. I usually like going with the more health just to have that more sustainability, and then I like building my basic mana, which is really good because you'll have the extra health and extra mana. The next step you want to start building is your cooldown reduction. You want to get your cooldown reduction cards as fast as you can. With this build, you get 40% cooldown reduction, which is really necessary for any Muriel because you're going to be spamming your abilities, you're going to be spamming your shields, you're going to be spamming your all your abilities. So you want and you need 40% cooldown reduction. So you try to build these as fast as you can. Usually I'll build one of these Pendulum of Lords. I'll have 25% cooldown reduction with my Lord's Ward and with my Lord's Key. And then the other option you have, if you're having a lot of trouble with energy or physical enemies, you could still start building one of your physical armor plates or your energy armor. You have one of those options, or if it's not really a big problem, then continue building that 40% cooldown reduction. Once I got these 2 cooldown reductions, I usually get rid of my Lord's Key and I will start building my Circlet of Mana. Or if you feel like you could sustain yourself enough with the health and dying is not really a big issue, you could start building some mana on your Circlet of Health, which is already slotted to give you that extra pool of mana. So you'll have these 2 cooldown reductions, you'll have your Lord's Ward, and you will probably finish one of these out, Circlet of Mana or Circlet of Health. And then in the late game, you could get rid of your Lord's Ward. Another option you do have, and the only downside about this build, is you don't have a late game ward, which is really a bad part of this build. The only reason I don't have a Lord's Ward in the late game is because if you go here, In my deck, I only have one Lord's Ward, and it's just the only one I use in the mid game. In the early game, if you have two Lord's Ward, feel free and replace one of these Pendulum of Lords with your Lord's Ward. You'll still get that mana, and you'll still get the health. You'll be sitting at 37.5 cooldown reduction, I believe, which is not even a big difference. And having that ward is such a big benefit. Please use it if you do have it. Trust me, wards are really useful. And we also have a Mad Sport Sash. I don't really use this card because I usually dual lane with my partner, and we usually don't have to use this. The only reason I have this is if you're caught out on solo laning with Muriel. What this card does, it gives you 1.4 health regen, and it gives you that little bit of physical armor, which you may or may not need, but the unique passive on this helps a lot. It's going to deal damage every second to minions, so it will help you maintain a lane for a little bit as far as playing Muriel. That's why I always like having it, just in case, but you really you're not going to find yourself using this that often, as far as, you know, supports usually don't solo lane, and you usually don't want to throw anything on there. So basically in this build, you have that 40% cooldown reduction, you have 220 physical armor and energy armor, and you have your Circlet of health and your Circlet of mana. Now, Circlet of mana is really underrated card, but it helps a ton. It helps you in that sustainability that Muriel needs. It helps you with that mana regen. And also the cool thing about this card, it gives you the health option. So you go 3 greater cells on there just to build up that health to mitigate some of that damage. And then you got your Circlet of health. These two complement each other. They give you that health regen with the Circlet of health, and you get that mana regen with the Circlet of mana. And not just only for yourself, but for your allies, which is such a big help. I usually find my allies running out of mana really quick, and the Circlet of mana helps tons. It helps a lot, more than you may think. It may help just your ally get that enough mana just to escape or whatnot, and it's just really a good help. The key highlights of this build is your 40% cooldown reduction, your tons of armor, and just your overall sustainability, being able to sustain in a lane, sustain in those team fights, or sustain before the team fight breaks out. You can regenerate that mana and that health for your allies. And usually I would have one of these Shepard's Phial from 1 point left over. This does 10% health regen. When I usually slot this, I'll have my Circle of Health because I keep this the whole game. And when I pop this Shepard's Phial, you're going to be mending your allies for at least 16 points of health for like a long time, for 10 seconds, which is really nice. It just adds to that benefit. And you'll be surprised how fast you can build your allies' health back up with this Shepard's Phial. Or you can go with the Mender's Phial. Same again. It will complement with the Circlet of mana and help get that mana regen for those carries. Not so much the carries, I mean the casters when they're laning. Usually when you're laning, you may have one of these and help a caster out. Maybe like Countess, or maybe like Iggy, somebody that's running low on mana when they're trying to sustain lane. You could pop one of these guys with your Circlet of mana, and you could regenerate a lot of mana for those guys. So we're going to go into the gameplay right here that I have with Muriel, and I'll tell you the other traits which you need to have with Muriel. Just a quick update, you can get rid of your barrier token and your guard token. You can go to your tempered plate. You can add a health option. Same thing with your tomb barrier. You can also add a health option. Just in case, you know, the physical or energy is not a big threat, you can go ahead and take more health for that. Also, Radiant Mantle is a better replacement for Mad Sport Stash. The only reason I don't use it is because I don't have it, but this is a better replacement because it has health and mana. So like I said, you want to go early in the game. You want to get your Lord's Key at the 3-minute mark when the Harvesters goes up. In this example, I get the red lane Harvesters up pretty fast, as I can, and then we go back to our lane and keep farming. And that's all I have to do. And in the meantime, our Kai on blue lane is going to get the other 2 Harvesters, which ultimately gives us at full Harvester control of the map at the 4-minute and 30-second mark, which is going to be a huge benefit for us, especially as a support, because sometimes we may get down on CXP, but those Harvesters are just going to add more CXP to our batch. And right here is another example of the Circlet of Health and that Mender's Phial that I was talking about earlier. We're going to switch over here to Murdoch's perspective. We're going to show you exactly how much regeneration he gets right after this kill. It's crazy. When does Mender's Phial and his health potion and my Circlet of Health and his own regeneration, he gets 26 health regeneration. That's crazy. That's really good. At the end of this clip, he's gonna get all his health back, allowing us not to recall and to keep pushing this tower and to ultimately even secure a tower pretty early. Not early, but we managed to just push down a tower really good right here. And you know, because of the health regeneration, it allows us to sustain longer in lane and keep pushing and putting pressure without having to recall. So, and when you're Muriel, you always want to be in those team fights. You always have to be in those team fights. Right, here's another example of being a good support. You could tell one of your damage dealers, your fighters, or your carries to come do prime early. For example, we have Wolfters over here, aka Wolfie. We were on comms together. I was like, hey, let's do prime early when nobody's expecting it, while our Gideon and Murdoch are pushing right, and our Countess is on left lane pushing. Ultimately, Countess gets picked off, but allows us just enough time to come and get this orb activated early in the game when nobody expects it. Now here I made a mistake by using my ultimate just, you know, sporadically and not taking into consideration that I could have saved it because Grim was a dead man a long time ago. Fortunately, I was here to back up our Kai when Rampage came through, and you know, we just pop a shield and just disengage because we know enemies are missing. While they were occupied with us at prime, our Gideon and our Murdoch ultimately get an inhibitor pretty early in the game, which gives us a big advantage right here, just because me and Kai decided to get prime early. Now, as a Muriel, you want to ultimate in before somebody engages. Like for example, I see Kai about to jump on our Murdoch, probably jump on him and ult him and do lots of damage, if not maybe even kill him if you know, if Murdoch's not building damage, and we just deny Kai his kill. For example, right here on his perspective, he's like, oh man, they got that Muriel, but Gideon goes right behind him, and our only Kai, Wolfie, jumps in, and we managed to secure that kill just because I ulted in and managed him to deny that kill that he was trying to go for. So when you're in team fights, you want to stay close to your allies. You want to be focusing on those people that are doing the damage, your carries, your fighters. You want to make sure they stay alive, and you want to make sure you ult in when they do engage. There's very few cases in which I don't ult in, because most of the time maybe they might melt them right away and I don't have to ult, so I save my ult and just use it when, you know, when I need to use it. So also, you want to take advantage of your slow. You want to make sure you slow down enemies who are trying to retreat, and make sure they slow down and hold them back so your allies can come back and collapse on them, because you will have your armor built up and you will have your health built up, which will allow you to be pretty tanky as a Muriel, while allowing to have that cooldown reduction and pop off all those abilities to make sure you mitigate all that damage that people are doing. Now here's a mistake on my part. I kind of wandered off from the team fight and ultimately cost us our Grim to die, which was my fault. As you know, you should stick closer to all the enemies, especially your carries that aren't building that health, that are just building damage. You want to make sure you're supporting them. But ultimately, I do get my ultimate just in time right here with my mana regen, and we managed to pounce back onto Chimera and take into consideration your bounce up that you have with your ultimate. That allows you to give some time for your allies to do damage while they're bounced up, or allows you to your allies to escape, like you just saw on the left side. One of our allies just escaped because he was running low, but Gideon comes back in and we do some damage, and we managed to get a triple kill right here, which was a really good engagement and allows us to keep pushing and pushing. Now there is some fine lines in between playing Muriel that you want to take into consideration. You don't want to be ulting into situations in which you know you can't make a difference. You want your ult to be able to sway the tide of battle. Maybe make sure that you can actually do something. You don't want to ult into, you know, a lost cause where there's an ally getting, you know, wrecked by like 5 enemies. You don't want to do that. The last thing you want to be doing is feeding the enemy another free kill when you ult in and knowing that you couldn't save them. That's also another key thing you need to take into consideration. You need to make sure and know who are the weak links in your team, and you want to make sure who are the strong links in your team, and make sure you're supporting both of them and know when to support both of them. Obviously, you can maybe even switch to a different lane. With someone struggling to maintain their lane, you can switch over and help them out, make sure they don't die, make sure they can get their CXP up. The last thing you want is somebody down on CXP just because they keep dying. Now you can only do so much. Like I said, you don't want to be focusing on people who are just, you know, in general just keep dying, or they don't listen, and you just want to focus on the people who are actually, you know, focusing on the team. Now you also want to make sure you keep farming. You don't want to be rotating. You don't want to be rotating too much as Muriel, because you will get down on CXP if you're not farming enough. Because I see a lot of Muriels, they want to save everybody, and that's good. You know, you have the mentality of a good Muriel, but you don't want to be rotating too much where you yourself aren't getting fed that CXP that you need. Because if you don't have CXP, then you're not going to be as useful as you should be. So you want to make sure you're staying in your lane, and you rotate when you have to. You have to rotate when you see somebody in a fight, especially in the early game. If you see somebody that they start to engage and they're fighting in the jungle or something, just ult in to make sure they don't die and make sure they can get that kill. Because Muriel is really good, especially in the early game and mid game. She can negate a lot of kills, especially if you know when to ult in. So those are just some tips that I have with Muriel. Also, don't forget to use your slow, and make sure you combo it with your speed boost on an enemy. Make sure you focus the weaker enemies that are trying to escape a team fight if they're really hurt, so you could hold them back and make sure your teammates collapse back on them. You're definitely not a lane pusher, you're not a fighter, and you're definitely not a jungler, and you're a support, and that's what your role is. So play that role to the best as you can as Muriel, and if you do, you will have a lot of success with Muriel. So you just make sure you're always with your allies, you're always supporting them, make sure you're always in those fights, make sure you're always in those lanes, regenerating mana and health with those guys, and ultimately you will have a lot of success. You know, you could easily take on a 3v2 like you see in this clip, and we killed a Kalari, and we also killed that Gideon. Unfortunately, our Belica died, but we still managed to get 3 kills off these guys, and you know, that's a wrap for them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the build. There will be a lot more builds coming, so please give it a like, and I'll catch you guys next time. I hope you guys enjoyed this Muriel build. Thank you guys.